Hey, so this is my first video for the seminar series by Taran Matharu, this guy right here. Um, we're going to be reading the first book in his series today. I'll just be reading and analyzing. This isn't the only thing I'm going to be doing on this channel, but this is one of the main things. This book right here, Novice, is the book I'm going to be reading and talking about, analyzing, etc. This is big front page, and yeah, I'll just try. You'll see that I'm on a Google Doc right here. I just made a collection of some pictures to try to illustrate some things that happen in the story. So yeah, if you have anything you think I missed or that was really important, or you want me to do something different, let me know in the comments. If you like what you see, put it in a like. And if you want to see more, feel free to subscribe. All right, and here we go. So I don't actually have the book itself. I just have a really, really old Kindle. But on the Kindle, I have a copy of the book, among other books. Slow. I use slow. Novice. Alright. So, I am currently in the theater room of my home. That little light up there is just a dimmer light. Nothing to be worried about. This is what it looks like. You'll see that over there I have it all up on the big screen, so that just for the sake of having something on, I'm not trying to just have it up because for the sake of having it up. My parents like to see what I'm doing on the computer at any time, and this way they can see without me feeling like there's an intrusion going on. So yeah, that's on the Kindle. And all right, so I'm going to start with the dedication. To my mother, for always being there for me. To Alice, the rock against which this story was written. And to my Wattpad readers, without whom none of this would be possible. Which I think is cool because I'm a Wattpad writer and I need more readers. Anyway, Chapter 1. It was now or never. If Fletcher didn't make this kill, he would go hungry tonight. Dusk was fast approaching, and he was already running late. He needed to make his way back to the village soon, or the gates would close. If that happened, he would either have to bribe the guards with money he didn't have, or take his chances in the woods overnight. So if you think I should talk less between paragraphs and sentences, interjecting, please let me know in the comments. If you like my additional input, again, let me know in the comments. But if I don't get any comments, then I don't get any feedback, so I won't be changing anything. You'll notice on screen that I just selected an icon on the toolbar provided by Hippo Video. What a lovely, lovely program that is. They let me use this virtually for free. They're not my sponsors or anything, but yeah. So this button is just changes my mouse to a regular mouse. This button lets me doodle on stuff, like surrounding that moon over there. And you'll notice it's attached to my screen rather than the document, which is the reason I would want to do that. Meh. I'm sorry. OCD me. Barge. Boo. It's really hard to do this with the mouse pad, guys. Maybe I should use a pencil against the trackpad? Nope, that's just my fingernail. But it's a little bit better. So yeah. Yeah, we're here. This is the image I picked to try to illustrate the first little bit. So yeah, let me start over. There's going to be a lot of stuff that isn't me reading aloud. Please let me know your opinions on that in the comments. It was now or never. If Fletcher didn't make this kill, he would go hungry tonight. Dusk was fast approaching, and he was already running late. He needed to make his way back to the village soon, or the gates would close. If that happened, he would either have to bribe the guards with money he didn't have, or take his chances in the woods overnight. The young elk had just finished rubbing its antlers against a tall pine, scraping the soft velvet that coated them to lead the sharp tines beneath. From its small size and stature, Fletcher could tell it was a juvenile, sporting its first set of antlers. It was a fine specimen, with glossy fur and bright, intelligent eyes. Fletcher felt almost ashamed to hunt such a majestic creature, yet he was already adding up the value in its head. The thick coat would do well when the fur traders came by, especially as it was now winter. It would probably make at least 5 shillings. I don't know why they're using an approximation of the English system of the old English system of money. Actually, no. England still uses pounds, so it's I think Taran Matharu might be British. This guy. I don't know, but yeah, you guys can let me know that in the comments too. Just seriously, any publicity when it comes to YouTube is good publicity, which is why some people do really dumb, weird, and stupid things. I'm sorry, I will not be participating in the Tide Pod Challenge. I have a feeling it's already dead anyway. The antlers were in good condition, if a little small. They might fetch 4 shillings, if he was lucky. It was the meat, though, that he craved the most. Gamey red venison that would drip sizzling fat into his cooking fire. A thick mist was hung heavy in the air, coating Fletcher in a thin layer of dew. The forest was unusually still. Normally, the wind rattled the branches, allowing him to stalk through the undergrowth unheard. Now he barely allowed himself to breathe. He unslung his bow and knocked an arrow into it. It was his best arrow, the shaft straight and true, the fletching from good goose feathers rather than the cheap turkey feathers he bought at the market. He took a shallow breath and drew back on the bowstring. It was slippery on his fingers, and he had coated it in goose fat to protect it from the moisture in the air, which makes sense considering most bowstrings, when you don't have access to elastic, usually there's some sort of intestine, like, well, not elastic. They're usually either twine or some sort of intestine, which would make it a wise idea to line it with some sort of fat to protect it from moisture. And I know gut string is kind of a icky idea, but all's well that ends well, I guess. Even if it didn't end well for the animal involved. But I mean, if you're eating it anyway, you might as well use its intestines for something useful, rather than just shoving the offal into the earth or onto your fire. The point swam in and out of focus as he centered it in on the elk. Fletcher was crouched a good 100 feet away, hidden in the tall grass. A difficult shot, but the lack of wind brought its own rewards. No gusts to jar the arrow in its flight. He breathed and shot in one fluid motion, embracing the moment of stillness in body and mind that he had learned from bitter and hungry experience. He heard the dull thrum of the bowstring jarring, and then a thud as the arrow hit home. It was a beautiful shot, taking the elk through the chest, into the lungs and heart. The animal collapsed and convulsed, thrashing on the ground, its hoofs drumming a tattoo on the earth in its death throes. He sprinted toward his prey and drew his skinning knife from the slim scabbard at his thigh, but the stag was dead before he got to it. A good, clean kill. That's what Burden would have said. Killing was always messy. The bloody froth from the elk's mouth was a testament to that. He removed the arrow carefully, and was happy to see the shaft had not snapped, nor had the flint point chipped on the elk's ribs. Not elf. If it were hunting elf, if Fletcher were hunting elf, that would be wrong, illegal, and stuff. No, he's hunting elk. ELK. Not elf. So yeah, this is a four-legged, hooved, and antlered animal. Although he was Fletcher by name, the amount of time he spent binding his arrows frustrated him. He preferred the work Burden would occasionally give him, hammering and shaping iron in the forge. Perhaps it was the heat, or the way his muscles ached deliciously after a hard day's work. Or maybe it was the coin that weighed down his pockets when he was paid afterward. The young elk was heavy, but he was not far from the village. The antlers made for good handholds, and the carcass slipped easily enough over the wet grass. His only concern would be the wolves, or even the wildcats now. It was not known for them to steal a hunter's meal, if not his life, as he brought his prize back home. He was hunting off the ridge of the Beartooth Mountains, so called for their distinctive twin peaks that looked like two canines. The village lay on the jagged ridge between them, the only path up to it on a steep and rocky trail from the gates. So I imagine that over here is the Beartooth Mountains, looking like canines in the distance. Currently speaking, I'm pretty sure this is something that happened well after the this particular happening, what I'm reading right now. I've read these books before, and I'm comfortable reading them to YouTube. Again, if you guys want to give me suggestions on what to read, then feel free to give me suggestions. If I've read it, I'll let you know. If I haven't, I'll read it first and let you know if I want to put it on YouTube. So yeah. The only path up to it on a steep and rocky trail in clear view from the gates. A thick wooden palisade surrounded the village with small watchtowers. Sorry, I stutter a lot, and I recently got my mouth numbed for a dental appointment earlier today, so if I'm talking weird or stuttering, etc., my apologies. A thick wooden palisade surrounded the village, with small watchtowers at intervals along the top. It had not been attacked for a long time, only once in Fletcher's 15 years, in fact. Even then, it had been a small band of thieves rather than an orc raid, unlikely as that was this far north of the jungles. Despite this, the village council took security very seriously, and getting in after the ninth bell was always a nightmare for latecomers. Fletcher maneuvered the animal's carcass onto the thick grass that grew beside the rocky path. He didn't want to damage the coat, for it was the most valuable part of the elk. Furs were one of the few resources the village had to trade, earning it the name pelt. So apparently pelt is somewhere on the ridge between these two mountains. I don't see it in this piece of artwork by M. Gruska, who, by the way, did a whole slew of different bits of art for this series, so kudos to her. It was heavy going, and the path was treacherous underfoot, even more so in the dark. The sun had already disappeared behind the ridge, and Fletcher knew the bell would be sounding any minute. He gritted his teeth and hurried, stumbling and cursing as he grazed his knees on the gravel. His heart sank when he reached the front gates. They were closed, the lanterns above lit for their night-long vigil. The lazy guards had closed up early, eager for a drink in the village tavern. So now Fletcher's about to talk, and I'm going to use my own voice when articulating his words. However, I might alter my voice to match more of the characters if other characters speak. If you don't like this, let me know in the comments. If you do like it, let me know in the comments. If you would recommend a different voice for a particular character, let me know in the comments. As I said before, any attention is good attention when it comes to YouTube. But to me, it matters little anyway. You lazy sods! The ninth bell hasn't even rung yet! Fletcher cursed and let the elk's antlers fall to the ground. Let me in! I'm not sleeping out here just because you can't wait to drink yourself stupid. He slammed his boot into the door. Now, this is another character speaking. One that I thought was well represented by the next picture, but I'll explain why in a moment. Now, Fletcher, keep it down. There's good people sleeping in here, came a voice from above. It was Didrik. He leaned out over the parapet above Fletcher, his large moonish face grinning nastily. Fletcher grimaced. Of all the guards who could have been on duty tonight, it had to be Didrik. Didrik Cavell, the worst of the bunch. He was 15, the same age as Fletcher, but he fancied himself a full-grown man. Fletcher didn't like Didrik, and to say so would, and I think didn't like would be a little bit of an understatement. The guardsman was a bully, always looking for an excuse to exercise his authority. I sent the day watch off early tonight. You see, I take my duties very seriously. Can't be too careful with the traders arriving tomorrow. You never know what kind of riffraff will be sneaking about outside. He chuckled at his jibe. Let me in, Didrik. You and I both know that the gates should be open until the ninth bell, said Fletcher. Even as he spoke, he heard the bell begin its sonorous knell, echoing dully in the valleys below. What was that? I can't hear you, yelled Didrik, holding a hand up to his ear theatrically. Let me in, you dolt! This is illegal! I'll have to report you if you don't open the gates this minute, he shouted, flaring up at the pale face above the palisade. Well, you could do that, and I certainly wouldn't begrudge you your right to. In all likelihood, we would both be punished, and that wouldn't do anyone any good. So, why don't we cut a deal here? You give me that elk, and I'll save you the trouble of sleeping in the forest tonight. Shove it up your beep! I prefer not to clutter my mind or my speech with curse words. So if curse words do come up, I'll just bleep them out like you saw earlier. Personally, it's just me not wanting, it's not just a sensitivity per se, it's more of me trying to maintain a brightness and intelligence in my speech and actions, that I may therefore be in a better position to help people when they need it. But it's just me. If you have a problem with it, let me know in the comments below. If not, just don't comment. Fletcher spat in disbelief. This was blatant blackmail. Come now, Fletcher, be reasonable. The wolves and the wildcats will come prowling, and even a bright campfire won't keep them away in the winter. You can either leg it when they arrive, or stay and be an appetizer. Either way, even if you do last until morning, you'll be walking through these gates empty-handed. Let me help you out. Didrik's voice was almost friendly, as if he were doing Fletcher a favor. Fletcher's face burned red. This was beyond anything he had experienced before. So this is by 2 Piastra. I looked up Spoiled Prince, intending to get some sort of caricature for Didrik Cromwell. And this is what I approximated. I thought the roundness of and paleness of his face was accurate, even if the clothes are a little bit too fine for someone in his stature for now. But yeah, definitely suits Didrik in my opinion. There's other stuff too, but that's all for chapter 1, I think. I'm going to try to break up these videos by chapter because this one's already getting a little long. Fletcher's face burned red. This was beyond anything that he experienced before. Unfairness was common in Pelt, and Fletcher had long ago accepted that in a world of haves and have-nots, he was definitely the latter. But now this spoiled brat, a son of one of the richest men in the village, no less, was stealing from him. Is that it, then? Fletcher asked, his voice low and angry. You think you're very clever, don't you? It's just a logical conclusion to a situation in which I happen to be the beneficiary, Didrik said, flicking up his blonde fringe from his eyes. It was well known that Didrik was privately tutored, flaunting his education with flowery speech. It was his father's hope that he would one day be a judge, eventually going to a law house in one of the larger cities in Hominum. You forgot one thing, Fletcher growled. I would much rather sleep out in the woods than watch you take my kill. Ha! I think I'll call your bluff. I have a long night ahead of me. It will be fun to watch you try and fend off the wolves, Didrik said with a laugh. Fletcher knew Didrik was baiting him, but that didn't stop his blood boiling. He gulped the anger down, but it still simmered at the back of his mind. I won't give you the elk. There's 5 shillings in the fur alone, and the meat will be worth another 3. Just let me in, and I'll forget about reporting you, and we can keep this whole thing behind us, Fletcher suggested, swallowing his pride with difficulty. I'll tell you what. I can't come away completely empty-handed. That wouldn't do now, would it? But since I'm feeling generous, if you give me those antlers you neglected to mention, I'll call it a night, and we can both get what we want. Fletcher stiffened at the nerve of the suggestion. He struggled for a moment, and then let it go. 4 shillings were worth a night in his own bed, and to Didrik it was nothing but pocket change. He groaned and took out his skinning knife. It was razor sharp, but it wasn't designed for cutting through antlers. He hated to mutilate the elk, but he would have to take its head. A minute later, and with some sawing at the vertebrae, the head was in his hands, dripping blood all over his moccasins. He grimaced and held it up for Didrik to see. All right, Didrik, come and get it, Fletcher said, brandishing the grisly trophy. Throw it up here, said Didrik. I don't trust you to hand it over. What? Fletcher cried in disbelief. Throw it up now or the deal is off, and I can't be bothered to wrestle it from you and get blood all over my uniform, Didrik threatened. Fletcher groaned and hurled it up. spattering his own tunic with blood as he did so. It flew over Didrik's head and clattered on the parapet. He made no move to get it. Nice doing business with you, Fletcher. I'll see you tomorrow. Nice doing business with you, Fletcher. I'll see you tomorrow. Have fun camping in the woods, he said cheerily. What? Wait, shouted Fletcher. What about our deal? I held up my end of the bargain, Fletcher. I said I'd call it a night, and we'd both get what we want. And you said earlier you would rather sleep in the woods than give me your elk. So there you go. You get what you want, and I get what I want. You really should pay attention to the wording in any agreement, Fletcher. It's the first lesson a judge learns. His face began to withdraw from the parapet. That wasn't the deal. Let me in, you little worm, the Fletcher roared, kicking at the door. No, my bed is waiting for me back home. Can't say the same for you, though. Didrik laughed as he turned away. You're on watch tonight. You can't go home, yelled Fletcher. If Didrik left his watch, Fletcher could get his revenge by reporting him. He had never considered himself a snitch, but for Didrik, he would make an exception. Oh, it's not my watch, Didrik's voice shouted faintly as he descended the palisade steps. I never said it was. I told Yakov I'd keep an eye out while he used the private. He should be back any minute. Fletcher clenched his fists, almost unable to comprehend the extent of Didrik's deceit. He looked at the headless carcass by his ruined shoes. As the fury rose up in him like bile in his throat, he had only one thought in his mind. This is not the end of it. Not by a long shot. End of chapter 1. Okay, so yipe. I realized that was probably a relatively long video. If you want me to try to split it into shorter segments or to talk less in the meantime, I'll be happy to do so, but only as per suggestions. Thank you for watching my video. Subscribe if you want more. Like if you like what you saw. And comment below if you have literally anything to say about the video. I'll probably also be telling my my buddy Stefan about my YouTube channel as a place to maybe put some cool stuff for video games. So if you want to check that out, feel free. Thanks for watching. Goodbye. Well, actually, second thought. Thank you to Hippo Video for allowing me to use your software to put it on my YouTube. There. Now I'm done.